Chapter 47. Echoes of the Past. Josue Chi stood at the edge of the mist-shrouded forest, the wooden sword in his hand, cool and smooth beneath his fingers. The dream had been vivid, a younger version of himself, eyes wide with innocence, handing over a water spirit pearl that shimmered like captured moonlight. He remembered the weight of it, the way it pulsed faintly against his palm, as if alive. Now, the pearl was gone, its essence lingering in the air like a whisper. He traced the grooves on the sword's hilt, the familiar pattern worn smooth by years of use. The forest around him was silent, save for the rustle of leaves and the distant cry of a bird. He felt the pull of the past, a thread tugging at his heart, but he knew better than to follow it. The memory of his first encounter with Karl Jui came unbidden, sharp as a freshly drawn blade. He had been a young man then, barely more than a boy, his robes still crisp and new. The crimson horse had reared up in the middle of the road, its rider a small, fierce girl, with eyes like dark pools clinging to its mane as it bucked wildly. Josue had acted without thought, drawing his sword and stepping between the horse and the girl. The horse had shied away, and the girl had fallen, landing hard on the dirt. She had looked up at him, her face streaked with mud and tears, her small hands clutching a broken wooden doll. "You saved me," she had whispered, her voice trembling. He had nodded, not knowing then that he would become the one she would rely on for the rest of her life. Now, as he stood in the same forest, the memory felt like a wound that would never heal. He remembered the way she had looked at him, the way her eyes had held a quiet desperation, as if she knew he would one day leave her behind. He had turned away from the invitation to the Jui family's fortress, knowing the pain it would cause. The Jui family was a powerful clan, their fortress a place of safety and strength, but he could not bring himself to go. He had seen the way her mother, the stern but caring elder Chin, had watched him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. He had felt the weight of her gaze, the unspoken questions about his connection to Karl's past. He could not bear to see the hope in Karl's eyes when she asked him to stay, knowing he would have to leave. As he walked away from the Jui family's estate, Karl had stood on the stone steps, her eyes glistening with tears. Her small frame was tense, her hands clenched at her sides. She had said nothing, but the silence spoke volumes. Josue had felt his throat tighten, the words he wanted to say caught in his chest. He had turned his head, unable to look at her, and continued walking. The sound of her footsteps behind him had faded, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird. He had not looked back. The weight of his decision pressed down on him, a heavy stone in his chest. He had always been a man who acted on instinct, who followed the path of the sword, but this time he had chosen to walk away. He had thought it would be easier, that the distance would make it less painful, but it had only made it worse. The memories of Karl, of her small hands and her quiet voice, haunted him. He could not shake the feeling that he had made a mistake, that he had turned his back on something precious. The forest grew denser as he walked, the trees closing in around him like old friends. He heard the sound of a flute, soft and haunting, drifting through the air. It was a melody he recognized, one that had been played by the same girl he had saved years ago. He followed the sound, his steps slowing as he approached a small shrine nestled beneath a cluster of ancient pines. The shrine was simple, carved from dark wood and adorned with delicate carvings of dragons and phoenixes. At the entrance, a young woman sat cross-legged, her fingers dancing over the flute, her eyes closed in concentration. It was Tomika, her face serene, her long hair tied back with a simple silk ribbon. She was wearing a pale blue silk robe, her bare feet resting on the cool stone steps of the shrine. Josue stopped a few paces away, not wanting to disturb her. The flute's melody was familiar, a song that had been played in the Jui family's courtyard when he had first met Karl. He closed his eyes, letting the music wash over him, and for a moment he was back in that time, the weight of the past lifting just a little. Tomika's flute music was more than just a melody. It was a memory, a thread that connected him to the past. As she played, he felt the echoes of Karl's presence, the way she had looked at him, the way she had spoken to him. He realized, with a sudden clarity, that Karl had become the hidden, unspoken emotion in his heart. She was not just a memory, she was a part of him, a quiet ache that he could not ignore. He had tried to push her away, to forget her, but she had never left him. She had been with him all along, in the way he moved, in the way he thought, in the way he lived. The flute's melody reached a crescendo, then faded into silence. Tomika opened her eyes and turned to look at him. Her expression was calm, but there was a flicker of recognition in her gaze. "You came," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Josue nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He had not realized how much he had needed to hear that melody, how much he had missed the connection it represented. "She is always with you," Tomika said, her voice gentle. She did not need to say who she meant. Josue felt a lump form in his throat. He had never spoken of Karl to anyone, not even to himself, but Tomika had seen it, the way he carried her in his heart. He had thought he had buried her, but she had been there all along, a quiet presence that he could not escape. "I know," he said finally, his voice rough. He looked down at the wooden sword in his hand, the one he had carried for years. "I've tried to forget her, but she's still here." Tomika nodded, her expression understanding. Some emotions are not meant to be forgotten. They are part of who we are. Josue felt a wave of relief wash over him, a sense of acceptance he had not felt in years. He had been carrying the weight of his decision for so long, but now, with Tomika's words, he felt it begin to lift. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the quiet strength in her eyes, the same strength that had been in Karl's. "Thank you," he said, the words simple but heartfelt. Tomika smiled, a small, gentle smile that reached her eyes. "You're welcome." She turned back to her flute, and the melody began again. Softer this time, a gentle reminder of the past. Josue stood there, listening, feeling the weight of his heart begin to lighten. For the first time in years, he felt like he was home. As he walked away from the shrine, the forest seemed less dense, the trees no longer closing in on him. The path ahead was clear, and he felt a sense of peace he had not known in a long time. He knew he would not be able to return to the Jui family's fortress, not yet, but he no longer felt the need to run from it. Karl's presence was a part of him, and he could not deny it any longer. He would carry her with him, not as a burden, but as a reminder of the strength and love that had been given to him. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Josue paused for a moment, looking back at the shrine, the place where he had found a moment of clarity. He could still hear the faint sound of the flute, the melody weaving through the trees like a gentle breeze. He took a deep breath, the air cool and clean, and continued on his path. The forest was no longer a place of silence. It was filled with the echoes of the past, but now those echoes were a comfort, not a burden. He thought of Karl again, of the way she had looked at him when he had left. He had thought he was doing the right thing, but now he realized he had been wrong. He had been running from the truth, from the part of himself that still belonged to her. But now he knew he could not run anymore. He would face it, he would carry it, and he would honor her memory by living his life with the same strength and courage she had shown him. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Josue felt ready to walk it. He knew there would be challenges, but he also knew he was not alone. Karl's presence was with him, a quiet strength that would guide him through the darkness. He would not forget her, and he would not let her go. She was a part of him, and he would carry her with him, always. As the last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, Josue Chi walked on, his wooden sword held loosely in his hand. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature, the rustle of leaves, the chirp of birds, the distant call of a fox. It was a peaceful place, a place where the past and present could coexist. He felt a sense of calm settle over him, a feeling he had not known in years. He was no longer running from his past, he was embracing it. And in that embrace, he found a new kind of strength, one that would carry him forward into the future. The forest path wound through the trees, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. Josue's footsteps were light, his mind clear. He had come to terms with his past, and now he could move forward. He would not be the same man who had left the Jui family's estate, running from the pain. He would be a man who had faced his pain, who had embraced his emotions, who had found a way to carry them without being weighed down. The melody of Tomika's flute lingered in his mind, a gentle reminder of the love and strength that had been given to him. He felt a smile touch his lips, a real smile, not the forced one he had worn for so long. He was ready to face the world, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Karl's presence was a part of him, but it was no longer a burden. It was a gift, and he would carry that gift with him always.